we are here to welcome you for another video of ODNE Europe People of Gestalt in OD. Today we are here with Beate and Anita. It's a pleasure to have you both.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And from Norway. And I'll start by introducing them. Beate Midttun is an RNoAF graduate. She retired from the psychological service in the Norwegian Defence in 2008 with the rank of major. She has work experience from the UNHQ NY, the Norwegian Mission to the UN in New York, Accenture and Manpower Group, Right Management. Beate holds a master's degree in organizational and leadership development, graduated from Norwegian Gestalt Institute in 2015, participated in GATLA and graduated DSP New York in March 2019. Beate is holding the role of Program Lead, Organizational Development, Innovations and Cultural Change in Fredrikstad Municipality. She published Talkshop for Change and Awareness from Norsk Gestalttidsskrift, Årgang number 2 for 2018. I didn't learn Norwegian, although I've been visiting for the past 5 years. And her colleague, Anita Bolghaug, sorry about the pronunciation, graduated from the Norwegian Gestalt Institute in 2013. She holds a master's degree in family therapy and systemic practice from 2019. She has worked as a coach and later therapist, helping people with processes of change for 25 years, both individual and in various organizations. Currently, she works as a process lead for cultural change program in Fredrikstad Municipality. Program Fulltime involves more than 6,000 employees, politicians, and organizations locally and nationally. It's a real pleasure to have you both. Please feel free to add anything you want on your biography, if I missed anything.
I think that is a very, very full description. Thank you.
And the whole idea of those videos is really to show the eclectic application of the Gestalt methodology in various parts of the world and various parts of organizations and larger systems. And it's a real pleasure to have you here both, because for me, you bring a real insight into large group work with whole intelligence. Let's start with the first question. You have both quite different background. What drove your collaboration between you two in the first place?
Well, I saw this ad popping up all over the place. And I was working as a therapist at the time, both individuals, but also in organizations whenever they invited me to work in organizations. And then suddenly I saw this ad coming towards me, asking for what I had been working with for a long time, and they specifically they asked for Gestalt background, and that is seldom. That is rare in those kind of ads. So that's what I was that attracts me. So, and then of course Beate was the one asking for this. We had met, but very, very briefly, just a couple of seminars we have been together. So yeah, what would you like to say about that, Beate?
Well, as I'm thinking about it now, it's like you meet people accidentally somewhere, and we did sit next to each other at one of the seminars, and we did actually have a little chit chat, but we didn't get to know each other.
No.
So it's really interesting that we're still here. And I was thinking back to why on earth did I ask for Gestalt? I mean, I was not even a Gestalt therapist at the time. I was in the last year of my education. And I think I really appreciated the education so much. And I really wanted to have the ability or the possibility to develop my own skills, and I also wanted to expand the possibility of working this way within my organization. And I just knew that if I was going to be able to do that, I need to have more people. So I was hoping when I was hiring that someone with a similar background, or maybe even with more experience than I had, would be attracted. And it turned out to be a success.
Yeah, but then again, you didn't hire me as a number one candidate.
And that was annoying. That was annoying. Well, it turned out that as we were hiring, we were only looking for one person, and we were sort of lacking masculine competence in the team. So my team went for the male person, and then I negotiated. What if we cut it in half, or maybe just a little bit of this person and a little bit more of this person, so we can actually have 2 new people in. So luckily, my team agreed to that, so I got them both. And then we were 3.
Yeah, for a while we were 3, but I was the stayer. Yeah.
A nice story, and it's always interesting how relationships, friendships, and companionships and colleagues make changes. And one of the change you made in our field, you coined the Talkshop methodology in the Fredrikstad Municipality. It is inspired by Malcolm Parlett's whole intelligence concept. Can you tell us a bit more about it?
Sure. I actually met Malcolm Parlett in 2006 when I was still working for the Air Force. And he was introduced to me through Bjørg Tofte. And she and I was working together. She used to be a Gestalt therapist. So in her memory, I'm really happy today that Malcolm and I still have a working relationship. And back in 2006, he hadn't written his book, and he had all these thoughts, and he was really clear on the 5 abilities, which he used to call them. And they stuck with me. So as we were starting to do this work together in Fredrikstad, I sort of was trying to look for a way to explain what we're actually doing in a language that most people can understand. So as we were conducting what we were conducting, we started talking and discussing with Malcolm, well, how can we translate this to Norwegian, or maybe even better, how can we translate it to the local dialect in Fredrikstad? So that is the language of the thing. But when you go into the content, I don't know, would you like to say something about that, Anita?
No, I've got a bit distracted here, but language is really, really important in meeting people, and in every way it's important for the contact and the relationship that we really understand the same words in the same way. And therefore we use a lot of time to unpack words and try to, our theoretical fundament is really important to us, but we have to when we use it in daily life, we have to translate it into words that people understand. And Malcolm has done that through his model of whole intelligence very, very nicely. So when we met with him and started to do this kind of work, there was a lot of little and bigger pieces falling on their places. Yeah.
What also comes up to me is that when you work in organizations and you're trying to analyze what's actually going on in the field, just having these key words to start looking at. What are we looking for? What is emerging here? What is the situation? How do we watch the relationships? What are we observing? What kind of experiments can we do? And just having like I don't like to say a procedure, but it helps us to have these key words. And especially since we didn't meet Malcolm very often, and to have the key words that we together would sort of sum up what is going on here. How can we structure this so it's easier for us to structure together? And I think, yeah, to me that was also important, because you can read so much about organization development, and there's so much going on in a culture, and there are so many ways or entrances to go into to understand what is going on. And I know recently Malcolm has been talking about these different entrances to look at something. If we look at from the relational point of perspective, what's going on? If we look at it from, we can go to a cognitive side, or we can go to the body, and then looking into the mirror, what am I actually noticing? I mean, just this dance of going through the 5 explorations is helping us to actually be really quick in the situation. And when you work with large groups, you really need to be quick, and you need to be slow. So it's both. It is very helpful.
So not just did we translate it to our words and our special dialect in this part of Norway, but we also made these drawings so that we could visualize what these entrances was. So self-reflection is a person looking into the mirror, and relationship is 2 people sitting looking at each other, and using drawings and using metaphors are really nice in developing figures very quickly in organizations. And yeah.
Sorry, no, go on.
No, I just noticed that so many things is coming up in my head, and I'm thinking, well, what is Talkshop really about? Because of course it's based on Malcolm's theory, but I think Talkshop, other people use the word Talkshop too, but our Talkshop was really special about it was the challenge of mixing different roles in the same room and actually getting them to meet and have good contactful dialogues. And we've never stopped being fascinated how that is actually working every time. That we can bring politicians, leadership, union members, regular employees together in the same room and sort of create such a trustful room where they can actually put the role aside and meet as just regular people. And relax in that and have a good and fruitful conversation about something that either us or they find important.
And it's really interesting to bring it. It brings us to the next question. But before I go to the next question, I must say I'm really impressed at the dialect. You say you're using your local dialect and how important it is when we meet the clients where they are, and I can see the importance of it in the context. And you mentioned you work with a lot of stakeholders, over 6,000 probably stakeholders. The Talkshop is quite innovative translation of the Gestalt methodology and whole intelligence. You mentioned some of the challenges and positive advantages of using it. Can you tell us a bit more about the challenges and advantages of using the Talkshop methodology?
Should we go to us or should we go to the participants, Anita?
I don't know. We can start with one and then go to the other. You can start.
There are so many things that is challenging. If we go to the challenges, I think when you work with a large group and you bring a lot of people together and the room is the boundary of the event, we are getting so used to join in a room where there are tables, where I can sit behind the table and where I don't really have to engage. I can just sit there and be there for the hours that is going on. I might talk to a couple of people, but I don't really have to. I might raise my voice, but I don't really have to. And this brings me to the balance or the polarities of being safe and trust the room and anxiety. And working with balancing that as a process leader and as a couple of process leaders is quite challenging. But there's also something that we have really experimented with. How can we grade this? How can we do this so that we can really make sure that the people that are there in the room with us are comfortable, or as comfortable that they can be in a situation like this. And I think actually doing that every time over and over again is the most challenging part. But it's also the key to success. And then our experience is that the importance of actually voicing all the people in the room, or giving them the possibility to actually use their voice and say what they want to say. And also, of course, giving them the opportunity that they don't have to say something, but creating a space where we can hear all the voices, even though it is 100 voices within the time frame that we have. And it is possible. And it's been really, really exciting to see that. How can we actually do that? And I think that is one of the successes too. If we go to what have we heard both participants and especially maybe the leaders say, because I think that is the key why we're still doing this, because we hit something that they found really, really important. And I think that is one of the reasons why they have expanded the room for us to keep trying and experimenting and doing different sizes of groups and different variations and structures. And yeah, I don't know if I'm answering your question. I'm just rambling on. What are you hearing, Anita? What are you thinking?
No, I'm thinking you're spot on here. What are the challenges and what are the advantages? And the advantage, the challenge is what you are talking about, the dilemma of what is safe enough and what is challenging enough for the group for change and development to happen. Because if it's safe all the time, nothing new is happening. We know that in Gestalt. If there are just confluence and no differentiation, nothing is happening. So we have to bring that out in the room in a safe in a safe way to do it. And when everybody is, when there's a really big group and your leader and the leader of your leader is listening to what you are saying open in the big group, that might be very scary for many people. But how can we support each other? How can we make a structure that supports every little voice to raise? that is really, really important. That is the challenging part, and that is the part which brings the really success when leaders, which are not supposed to be the one who is talking a lot in these gatherings, they are in a listening position, as we call it. They are trained to listen while we are doing the talkshops, and afterwards their responses is, well, I really heard something new today. I really heard something that is new to me and that is very valuable for us as a group that I've heard. And that is one part of the really success. The other part is the response we have when the leaders and the group goes back to their workplaces, and we meet the leader maybe a week later or 2 weeks later, and they tell us, well, there are really something, I can't put a point to what it is, but there are really something going on here. We are acting different from before. We are talking together. People are smiling. Something is happening here. I don't know what it is, but something is happening. So it's really not very easy to measure it. But then again, we are trying to measure it now. You can talk about that, Beate, what we are going to do from now and the coming 3 years about researching and things like that.
Thank you, Anita. Yes, we are having researchers joining us, and we're really proud of that. In Norway, we have a research institute called FAFO, and they research on workplace environment issues. And they noticed us a couple of years ago, and we have done some work together, and they wanted to try and get some funding to actually stay with us for a while. And they have been able to, together with us, get funding for a research project for 3 years. We are going to collaborate with 2 other municipalities. So it's Drammen Kommune and Oslo Kommune, one of the local parts in Oslo, though. So it's actually a total of 16 pilots.
Wow.
And 6 of them will be in Fredrikstad. So we have selected 6 different workplaces where we will actually go in and conduct work, and we will follow the change processes for the next 3 years.
That's amazing.
So it is amazing, and we're starting in October, and with Corona, we got the money in March 18 actually. So from the shock of Corona, this was like 4 days, and then we got all this money, and what are we going to do? But we've been planning all spring, and luckily in Norway, we're actually able to start working and doing work and doing research, and we're of course kind of bewildered, I guess, but also proud. And it's also very interesting to see how it impacts our organization, that someone is actually going to document what we are creating together, because we are creating this together. Talkshop would never have been there if it hadn't been for the employees and the politicians in the city.
And somehow we plunged into the next question. You answered it. What was the first reaction when you introduced the 5 exploration? We heard the success story of how from a seed now it's starting to blossom all across parts of Norway, and I'm really excited about it. It's really a success story for Gestalt methodology to be implemented on such high level. But what were the first reaction when you said, well, we will do a talk show?
Actually, we introduced them to a room with chairs only. And that was way too much, taking away their tables and the possibility for hide behind computers and telephones and cell phones and things like that. So the responses were, oh, are we going to do therapy? And this is strange, and I'm so... I can't hide here. But then again, you know, when we have done this with the small groups and the groups started to grow and the people coming back that has been together with us before, knowing how we work and had really good experience, and you know, it just goes on and goes on. And nowadays, when people comes to us, they say, "Oh, I can really relax here. I can really listen to on another level. I can really say what I think while I thinking what I think, and it's really nice." So the first introduction was taking away the table, and the next introduction was rise up and invite them to the table and to the floor. And yeah, can you talk about that, Beate?
Yes. It's like I want to go back to the very, very, very beginning, and then I want to go to the floor. But I'll go to the floor first, because as we were doing more and more talk shops, or prekeshoppes, as we say today in Norway, because it actually got its own local word. So it has a new name today. And the new name is prekeshoppe. And preke is the Norwegian word, or the Fredrikstad word for talking, like to the next door neighbor. But what was emerging as we had done like maybe 20, 30 talk shops, was that we were out in different buildings all the time. And we thought we knew how many people who would come. And we thought we knew how big room we would have. And something started happening because we didn't know the room size. And more and more people were coming. So we were like, oh my God, we have this time frame. We have to be done within 2 hours. And suddenly we're not having 30 people, we're having 60 people. We don't even have enough chairs. So how can we start experimenting? And we knew we had to just do it there and then. And I was looking at Anita, and she was looking at me, and we're thinking, okay, so let's experiment. So we started with experimenting more and more with movement, leaving the chairs, not sitting on the chairs, but actually bringing people onto the floor, and experimenting with the themes that we were supposed to talk about, because that was actually very, very directed. And it just seemed to work even better. And it was very flexible, and it was time efficient. And it was actually more fun for us too. So we became more free in what we wanted to do. And our team was also fascinated that, wow, suddenly this is a totally new concept. So it's been like that all the way. So the talk shop we conduct today doesn't really look like the first ones we did at all. And we can still do all the variations of it. When I think all the way back to the very, very first beginning, I think as an organizational development consultant, I mean, part of our work is knowing where to go and build the safety that you need with the group or with the leader. And usually we know we're sort of a step ahead all the time. So I think in the very beginning, I felt like I was a step ahead all the time. And we were thinking that maybe we're going to do like regular presentations to involve people and tell them what this is and what we're going to do. And I remember one in my team actually thought she was going to do that we were going to travel around for the next 2 years holding presentations, talk about this challenge that we have, which is the Fulltime challenge. And I said, I don't think we're actually going to do that. We need to have a presentation because we need to know that we talk about the same issue, because we're not going to do this together all the time. You and I will go there, and Anita and somebody else will go there. And there are so many repetitions that we just need to know that we talk about the same things. But I don't think we're going to hold a lecture. We're going to talk. And in the beginning, that was like, we're going to do something else than holding a lecture? Yes. And I will never mind with she's not in the team anymore. She had to go back to her regular job, but she was like, huh? And from there off, we ended up starting a mix of lecture and small talk and little bit of lectures. And I think the really breaking point when Anita said to me, we need to stop being so structured. I will never forget that.
I don't remember saying that.
Oh, I remember. We were in the green room where they marry people today.
Okay, yeah. That was the early days. Well,
it was really early.
However, what I think I meant at the time was, instead of telling people this and that about this team, what about just bringing up the team and ask some very open questions about it to figure out what people were talking about or thinking about amongst this theme. So I guess I was thinking about something like that. But then again, more and more experimenting, more and more Gestalt theory, and what we have today hasn't been really very directly planned. It has emerged or been developed. The two of us, of course, but first of all the people we have met during this way. We have had more than 250 talkshops. We have met more than 3,600 people the last time I counted, and that was this spring. So I don't remember anymore. And all these people have helped us emerge what has become the Talkshop today.
You're creating it on the journey, and
yeah, absolutely.
I'm struck that some of the challenges you describe of people reaction, they're quite universal anywhere in the world when people get to work with Gestalt and with groups, and I could recognize some of the reactions in groups I've worked with. Especially when standing up from the chairs and no tables. It's been interesting to notice. And of course, you are internal agents in Fredrikstad. What are the challenges and positive sides of having a Gestalt background?
The positive side is the very core theoretical fundament, I think, which has to do with building relations, building the contact, emerging the figures, and being very to have it gives us a very or to say this in other words, when you work like this in organizations, you never know what you are going to meet when you go to work. every day. But we really know Gestalt theory, and we can really lean back to the Gestalt theory as a base and have a look in meta what is happening. Also, in the preparing for going out, we can talk about it, the two of us, or also somebody else, and also in the aftermath or in the debrief part of doing the job. I think that leaning on to Gestalt theory, to the field theory, to Kurt Lewin, to really understand what is happening here is really important, of bringing Gestalt into the organizational development. Yeah,
I'm thinking also we have to. I mean, I really, when we have 220 places where people meet for work every morning in our city, and just the fact that they have different experience cycles culture-wise, there are at different places, and having that metaphor with me in my head helps me, that the complexity of this situation. And also, when we started, I remember the first thing Nina, who is our employer, mentioned was that there is so much resistance out here. And everybody who works with organizational development talks about how do we deal with the resistance. And that is really interesting, because if you go to Gestalt, and especially if you read, there is a small chapter in Neve's blue book called Gestalt in Organizations, where he talks about how we as Gestalt practitioners think of resistance, not as resistance, but as, I forgot how he wrote it as I'm thinking about it here, but like the energy of the room. But I translated that to me as that if I believe that you are resisting, then I'm actually meeting you with resistance. So if I instead say that, there is no resistance, there's just different interests. It's just difference, that you have a different interest than I have. And I don't even know what it is. So instead of projecting my resistance or projecting that you are resisting, I'm going back to me and thinking, I wonder what you're thinking. Could you say something about that? I'm really interested. And I think that when I ask someone in a group, what are you thinking? And they really notice that I'm actually interested in what they're thinking, something new happens. Instead of me projecting that, no, you are resisting, you're not really interested. I just need to find out how can I impact you with what I want. And usually in an organization, because even though we want to be really flat, they usually are like a triangle. And it's really, really long way up to the top. And they're usually doing all the strategy work, thinking what is smart to do. Well, I'm thinking, if you really want to change and change fast, and Corona has changed us all very fast, but normally, or in the future, maybe it is more important to hear the voices of all the organization, rather than just trying to make an impact from the top on what is the wise thing to do. Because if you really want to innovate, I don't think the best ideas comes from above. I think they will be out there where people are actually doing the work. So in a way, it's a way of engaging you by truly thinking or believing that I have no idea what you think is a wise thing. And I need to get to know that. Does that make sense?
Totally. Yes, you got me thinking. And you give a real good example of how self-reflection and self-recognizing is important in the work of a Gestalt practitioner in an organization, and how you use it for your use of self as instrument. And I love the small chapter from Nevis. I had forgotten about it, but it's really. Well, I have to go back to Nevis. I've been reading quite a lot of other books, but go back to the basics would be nice. Nice. And we are coming to the end of the interview, to the last question. Can you tell us a little story, anecdote of working in organizations with Gestalt and with the Talkshop methodology?
Actually, there are so many stories we could have told, but we do have this head of the health, environment and safety in the municipality. She was with us in a Talkshop. Lisa, yeah. And after the Talkshop, she told us, we are really asking all our employees to go out there and take the responsibility and be change agents and develop all the time, but we have not given them the opportunities to do this. And the Talkshop is an opportunity to do what we are really told to do to each and every one of us. So when she said that, it made us very proud of being Gestalt therapists and bringing that to the organizations. And then again, we had Jonas Gahr Støre. Beate, would you like to tell about him?
I will tell about him, and then you have to take Nina, what she did last week.
Okay.
Jonas Gahr Støre is the leader of the Norwegian Labour Party. He's been a foreign minister of Norway. We invited him, like on Facebook, because he wanted to know. He wanted to talk with people who had opinions on trust reforms. So, like, leave new public management and explore more how can we work with the trust reform. So we said, well, I think you need to come to Fredrikstad and try the Talkshop, because I think that's what we're actually doing. And we were surprised when he said, yes, I'll come. And I thought, well, maybe he'll come next year. And then we got an email from his press spokesperson, and they wanted to come within the next 2 weeks. And this was in December last year. And they actually did come. And he came down to us the same day as he was holding his half-year press conference. And of course, in that press conference, he got a lot of questions about what is a trust reform in Norway, or for the union, for the Labour Party. And he shared with us, as we were talking, that before the Talkshop, he didn't really know how to explain it. And he said, I wish I had my press conference after this experience, because this is what trust reform is all about. And, well, at least to me, that was a really, I don't think I will have a moment like that in my career again, until last week.
Until last week, when Nina, which is our head manager at the moment, or not just at the moment, but she hasn't been for more than a year or something like that. She has been with us on a lower level for some times and been the one who has really supported our work and given us the chances to develop it. And now she's the head of the municipality. And last week we had this gathering with her leader group and all the, help me, Beate, with
the HR representatives, and then we had union members from 28 different unions.
Yeah. So it was about 50, 60 in the room or something like that?
We were 40.
Yeah, okay,
Sorry.
40 in the room. And we were doing sociometry or embodiment, walking on the floor. And she has done this with us several times now. So when she was talking to all the people, she also demonstrated something that we have done earlier for the group. She was visualizing the here and now and the future in short time space and the future in long term space in front of all her leaders and really supported group. So and learning them how to visualize, and that was a really nice moment. That's gives a lot to be a part of that and see that the Talkshop isn't about me and Beate. It's about a way of doing things, and we can leave it behind and they can do it by themselves.
It's amazing stories and very inspirational stories. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And thank you so much again for the interview and for being with us today.
Thank you very, very much for the invitation. You do an important piece of work conducting all these interviews. So thank you very, very much.
Thank you. Thank you very much.